Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Blackpool Youth Question Time. This is the first Blackpool Youth Question Time that there's been. And one thing that I'd like to say before we go any further is that if there is a fire this evening, then we are to exit through the fire escape on the far side. The other thing I'd like to say is actually one of the chief areas of conversation before we started this evening as the panel were collecting was how many people are there going to be in the audience? And I think we're all very, very pleased at the response that there has been. So thank you all very much for attending, and hopefully we've certainly got some fantastic questions for you, I think, this evening. Obviously, we will start with questions that have been sent in. Some of the people who sent those questions in are here, and they'll be able to answer the question, ask the questions themselves. In the event of people who aren't here or not quite so confident in asking those questions, I will ask them on their behalf, and the panel will obviously have a chance to answer those questions. There will then be an opportunity for those that are here to ask a supplementary question, and then the possibility of more questions from the audience. If I can introduce our panel, we have Councillor Paul Galley, who is a councillor for the Conservative Party. Paul, after leaving university, worked in the townships of Zimbabwe before returning to set up a recruitment agency business which he's run for 12 years. He is passionate about Blackpool and is from the Ankersholm area, and also public transport and economic development. Councillor Chris Morn is a councillor for the Labour Party. Chris is a graduate of York University, where he studied for a Masters in Chemistry. He is also the youngest councillor that the Blackpool Council has ever had, coming from his Masters directly to becoming a councillor for Blackpool Council. He sits on the Council Security Committee and also represents the council on the Lancashire Police Authority. Lauren Anderson is currently a member of the United Kingdom Youth Parliament and is a representative for Blackpool. Remarkably, Lauren actually achieved this by getting 1,500 votes behind her across the region, which is a remarkable achievement considering from a total of 4,000 votes in total that were cast. She's also a member of Young People's Council in Blackpool and attends Montgomery High School. Councillor Doug Green is Liberal Democratic councillor for Blackpool and particularly for the Squires Gate area. In total, Doug has been a councillor for 13 years. That initially started in 1979. He then left to, as he's put it, earn a bit of money as an accountant before returning more recently on his retirement from accountancy. And then last but not least, we have Nicole Burke. Nicole is chair of Blackpool Young People's Council. She's held that position for 4 years and is currently a student at St Mary's Sixth Form, where she is looking to go on to pursue a career in medicine. So please, if you could welcome our panel. Thank you. And we'll go to our first question. The first question is from Isaac Hesketh, and the question to the panel is: youth unemployment is soaring, and the connection service is being reduced. For example, Fleetwood office is now only open for 3 days each week. What does the panel suggest that we propose to do to ensure that the local youth remain confident and motivated and able to secure work in our area when they leave school or college? And I'd like to start that with Chris, please. Chris Moon.
Okay. Youth unemployment is Isaac in the room? Is he? Pardon? Is Isaac here?
Isaac, I don't think Isaac is here.
Okay, I'll just direct out. Yeah, youth unemployment is a major issue across the country, and particularly in Blackpool. the economy in Blackpool is based on a lot of public sector jobs and the tourism trade, and as you know, the tourism trade provides relatively low paid, unstable recruitment. So that really just leaves the public sector, but as I'm sure you're all aware, the government has decided to slash everything to do with the public sector, so recruitment is down. In terms of policing, for instance, that is a public sector body. We've lost over 666 posts recently, so the employment opportunities are severely limited. Coupled with that is a reduction in public sector finance. Since we took control, the Labour group in Blackpool, we have really tried to keep youth service afloat, but the last budget carried out by the last administration slashed youth provision by 50%. So it's very difficult to provide the same level of service with half the amount of money. So it is basically, we are trying to create opportunities. We're trying to prioritise investment in areas which support young people, but given the cuts agenda laid on us by central government, it's quite difficult to really achieve this.
So which particular areas is the council focusing on to best?
Well, anything that really supports vulnerable people is the key areas that we're focusing on, ranging from vulnerable young people to vulnerable adults, because that is essentially our mandate. Vulnerability and people who are vulnerable need services more than people who aren't. And essentially that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to protect vulnerable people and try and support them in any best way we can.
That's Chris. Paul Galley, can I bring you in at this point?
Absolutely, thank you. Yeah, this is an area that I've had a lot of pleasure in over the years as somebody who's been involved in a recruitment agency in the employment sector, and over the years I've put a lot of effort into helping people find their first job. And I know how hard it is when you don't have any experience and you don't have any skills that an employer will need to. It's almost a chicken and egg scenario to get on that ladder. And one of the things that, as Chris said, yes, times are very tough at the moment. And I think for the future of Blackpool, for the future of the country, we have to almost identify a 30-year plan in Blackpool of what our future economy will be. And we then have to link our future skills base into what we see the future demand will be for employers in the future, for children who are 11 now, what skills they will need to have when they enter the job market at 16 or 18. Now, there are certain moves at the moment there's a work programme, there's to get long-term unemployed back into work. There's a lot of emphasis on apprenticeships and so on, and apprenticeships where people won't just be hired as cheap labour and then removed after 6 months. So a lot of emphasis on long-term employment. But what I would like to see in Blackpool, and this is my plan, is to almost follow the Prince's Trust model, where you inspire people and you give them the support, you nurture them to believe that anything is possible and that they do have the self-belief and the ability to do anything, and you give them some soft loans, and in a way you help them start up their own businesses so they gain the experience that way, that they are going to be the future entrepreneurs that will build Blackpool. I always think, and what got me into politics was the chap that built the tower is a chap called John Bickerstaff. And if I was to come to this meeting tonight and say I want to build a big steel structure in front of the promenade or in front of the sea, you'd think I was mad. But he had this anything is possible attitude, and we can do it. And what I want to see is a lot of emphasis on raising aspiration with brilliant centres like this, where people can come and be told, yes, you can do it, but give them the support and give them the practical support that I had when I set my business up, so that people can really turn themselves around, and that through things like the internet we can trade all over the country, all over the world, and so that we don't just have to rely on the general sources of employment in Blackpool at the moment, which are the tourism industry, which is seasonal, or the public sector, which is, as Chris rightly said, is facing cutbacks. So if we build up this base and buy things like the Prince's Trust, and even looking at what other countries are doing, in Canada, for example, they have something called a YES scheme, and the YES deals with this whole thing of no experience, no skills, no job. Instead, they turn it on its head and say, we will give you the skills, but it has to follow a long-term plan. And I would like to see in Blackpool, it's something I'm really working on at the moment, for when, and I'm in the opposition at the moment in Blackpool, so one day when I run Blackpool, that what we will do is have a 30-year plan for the town which establishes the needs, though, of the future, especially where the 11-year-olds now, so when they leave education, they will have a job that's going to work for them, be that a job they can go into or a job they can start themselves. So it's going to take a lot of planning. And they are difficult times, but difficult times bring and create new opportunities because everybody in the country is facing a lot of tough economic problems. And because of that, they tend to look at different ways of doing things. And that creates new opportunities for new businesses that can offer a service and so on. So through e-commerce and the internet, I really am confident that we can turn the town around and most importantly, help our future yourselves into employment, because if we don't, then we're in trouble. But I'm really confident that we can do it, providing we plan now.
Okay, thank you, Paul. If I can pass over now to Nicole.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is all very nice and is a very good idea. You talk about a long-term plan, which is obviously just a very good idea. But what about, you talk about 11-year-olds, but what about people my age? You know, what about Sam and Dale and people who are 16, 17, the lost generation we've been called by the media, and it is a bit sensationalised, but at the end of the day, it's kind of true. We're going out now into an economy where there are no jobs, there are no prospects. We don't need a long-term plan, we need something now that's going to help us. We need a connection service that's going to show us what we can do, how we can do it. We need an education system that supports us through careers and our futures. We need help now, not in the future. So, as well, you talk about upskilling the young people, which is obviously a very good idea. But there are no jobs in Blackpool. Once you upskill your generation, they're going to leave the town and go to cities and other places in the area to work. So also, I hope that the council and the local authority has plans in place not only to upskill the generation, but also to ensure that there's places for them to work once they have the skills and they don't have to leave their hometown, or else Blackpool's never going to be regenerated. It's always going to be the same loop of seasonal jobs, public sector jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually quite a turn to Nicole's answer was really partly a national picture, and I'd like to bring in, if I can, one of the experts that we have in our audience today. We have Paul Maynard, who's Conservative MP for North Blackpool. Paul?
He's sitting at the back.
Oh, I am sorry. I think, but do you have a response for Nicole in terms of her concerns?
Well, I find it people in the city. I think it's a fair point. Yes, it is about the young people of today. I think what I would stress to the people gathered here is that we are focusing on apprenticeships. I know in my constituency we've seen the number go up by about 300%. I've taken one on myself. But it's also about not just saying that the only people who can help you find jobs are connections. It's not just about what the council can provide. There are other organisations out there. On my constituency offices, we have A4E in the same building. We've got an East in Blackpool, lots of other private sector, third sector bodies, all working hard to try to create new opportunities. And probably the last place you would now go in Blackpool to find a job is actually the job centre, bizarrely, because so many employers go straight to places like these, like A4E. They have a really good and strong relationship with them, so I think that's crucial. But it is, as Paul I think rightly did say, also about having a long-term vision, because we can't just continue with the type of economy we have at the moment, based on tourism in particular. We need to have a broader economy, which actually isn't also just a public sector either. We need to have private sector growth that pays worthwhile salaries, that encourages people like Nicole, once they graduate, to come back to Blackpool. We don't want to keep exporting our talented young people down to Manchester or Liverpool or London. We want to keep them on the Foul Coast. That means diversifying the economy. And just one example of how that's happening, and I'll shut up. If you take Blackpool and Foul College, they're looking at the opportunities in offshore wind and making Fleetwood a centre for the maintenance of offshore wind projects around the country. So their planning now is to what courses do we need to offer to take advantage of that commercial opportunity when it comes along? And that's the sort of long-term planning we need to have. That's why one of my big concerns at the moment about the council's budget is that they are scrapping essentially the economic development company that covered Blackpool, Fylde and Wyre, and that brought the three councils together, where we had economic planning across the Fylde coast. By bringing that back inside the council, focusing it just on small business, I think we're missing the opportunities to link up Fleetwood, Cleveland, Blackpool, Lytham and St Anne's, because in the end, our economy is a Fylde coast economy. It doesn't just stop where the borders of Blackpool stop. So really that's what I think we need to start doing.
Thank you very much. Doug Green, do you have a...
Thank you. First of all, it's easy to say, and it's said many times, but this isn't a new problem. The way the economy tends to work is in cycles and in numbers of years. And every so often, the economy seems to drop into a black hole. The last time it did was in the early 1990s. And the youth of that age were called the lost generation. There was another lost generation. There was another lost generation in the 80s. And because the boom during the 1990s, 2000s lasted so long, the recession that actually hit the whole national economy was that much deeper. The only way that you can progress this is to reinstate some of the things which have been scrapped over the years, mainly the apprenticeships. There is a lack of apprenticeships in this country. There isn't the gas board and the electricity board, which used to train the gas fitters and electricians, and BT doesn't have a monopoly like it used to do, and that used to train the telephone engineers. Those sorts of big organisations have gone, and therefore the government has got to step in and cover those apprenticeships which aren't being provided by nationalised big firms. It's a problem which won't go away. The coalition government is actually active at trying to encourage apprenticeships. But when all the apprenticeship schemes have been closed down, then it's a big task to fill. But you've also got to remember that we've also become dependent upon other people doing our jobs for you. I mean, I know I went to school in the 1960s, but there was one person came on one afternoon to do with what you were going to do for the rest of your natural. And that was it. That was the only job, advice about jobs, what you got at all. You were just asked what you wanted to do, and they said, oh, fair enough, and patted you on your back. We have become a little bit too reliant on other people doing jobs for us. And we've got to remember in life that when it comes down to it, everything is dependent upon what you make of your life. And it is important that you achieve the most you can do, get the most out of the system, but also work the hardest to actually make your life the best you can do, and hopefully for your dependents in future.
Thank you, Tom. And Lauren?
I just want to pick up on what you said about someone coming in. I think you're right saying something about people wanting to do your job for you, but I think that would be easy enough said if people knew what was out there to be done. I think that schools need more to be more educated on what jobs there are out there to be done, instead of just saying go out and do your job, because for me there's thousands of jobs out there and I couldn't name half of them. I think that's the most important thing. And also I think I want more higher end jobs to come to Blackpool, instead of us all being shipped out if you want to do maybe a talented job or something, because we mainly rely on the seasonal jobs here, and I think it's important that we bring more of these maybe higher, more educational style jobs to Blackpool, and I think that's an important thing that needs to happen. That's all I really got to say.
Thank you. This is something that an area that came up in a number of questions. So what I'd like to do is just to throw questions open to the audience, really. Has anyone a question for the panel in relation to employment across in the area and providing opportunities for young people? Yes.
People are saying about seasonal jobs, but seasonal jobs aren't really that bad, because fair enough they're saying they're low paid, but it's good work. Like my sister's just gone and got a job at the pleasure beach, and she's on a lot more than minimum wage. They could be paying her £4.94 because she's 16. They're paying her £6.78. Look, seasonal jobs aren't that bad, and yeah, we do need to bring a few more highly educated companies and jobs to this town, but I don't think that we can slate seasonal jobs and say that they're all bad, because they're not, and I think that it's not fair and they're being made out to be bad at the end of the day.
Thank you.
Can I just come back on that?
Certainly.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, you're right. No one's knocking seasonal jobs. When people talk about seasonal jobs in the context of Blackpool, what they're really saying is seasonal jobs can run alongside other more long-term jobs. So as a seasonal job for somebody who's looking for some work when they're 16, 17, 18 during the summer holidays is great. But for the people that really want to move on, as the lady at the end there said, I've forgotten your name, is it Nicole? Thank you, Nicole. There's a general conception that people, our best students, have to leave Blackpool to find work. At the moment we can offer them seasonal work, and we can offer them work in, say, the council, a hospital, or smaller businesses, but we're lacking other sources of employment. If you were to compare that to other towns, you would see that they would have a bigger sector of larger employers. So Boots, for example, Nottingham would have Boots, or other examples like that. And so what people are saying is not that we're knocking seasonal jobs. It's a great thing to do. It's a great thing, as somebody once said to me, they're learning how to graft at an early age, which will stand them in good stead in whatever they do in the future. But it's the things that runs along there. It's really that we're looking to diversify Blackpool's economy. So we have the seasonal jobs, the pleasure beach and the hotels and so on, but we also have a strong private sector that can sustain the economy, but also make sure that we don't lose our best trainees and graduates.
But people that go to university can come back to Blackpool within Wharton, which is 15 minutes away. We've got BAE systems, don't get me wrong, they've lost a lot of jobs recently, but there's still very talented people that work there that have gone to university but have come back here. So we're lacking in it, but we've still got a few things, and I'm sure if you want to come back here with your degree and get a good job, I'm sure you can find a job within commutable distance to get one, and if you want to come back to Blackpool, you'll make sure it happens, but maybe it's just an excuse for people.
Yes, Christina.
Yeah, well, on that, like was mentioned, I graduated in July. I've got a master's in chemistry from a decent uni. You try find a job in this area, and trust me, I've tried. I've been applying for the last year, trying to find something that is commutable, because I'm a counsellor in Blackpool. I need to live in Blackpool, and trying to find a job where I can commute from Blackpool outwards that suits a degree, which chemistry everyone thinks would be quite employable. It's not that easy. All the friends that I went to school with in Blackpool, I'm the only one that's came back of the ones that went to university, because there is no employment. And it's not just a Blackpool issue. I've got friends in Preston and out and about that have got good degrees from good universities, and they just can't find the employment because it doesn't exist to the level that we need to support the demand.
I'm conscious that because we could go on with this debate all evening, I think, and it's been very, very useful, but I think I'd like to move to another question. Again, this question has come in, the person is not here, but how does the panel suggest that we plan on tackling racism between young people? I'd like to start that with Doug, please.
Racism is not as bad as it was in the 1980s, but it is still a problem. And I think any attack on any minority is a problem. And we've got to accept that it isn't just a problem, it's more than that. So the person that is attacked by any hate crime of whatever sort, it is a abuse. And we've all heard stories about people ending up taking their own lives when they've been abused. So it is a problem which is going to be tackled, and there are only two places we can tackle. Well, there's three places we can tackle. One is the one which we've got most access to, and that is in the schools, and that's by education. The other two are less accessible. The only thing we can hope is that the parents of the children involved lead their children by example. And if they don't lead them by example, that they are called to court. And the other thing is peer pressure. That is pressure from young kids, the society that you're in as a child or a youth. And so therefore it isn't an easy problem to solve, because there's three areas which it can be caused by. And there's only one area where we can actually exert a positive picture, and that is obviously schools. So we should be encouraging our schools to do more to encourage our youth to take positive attitude towards it involved racialism and any other minorities.
Thank you, Doug. Nicole, hasn't Blackpool Young People's Council got a role here?
I think so. I think especially in promotion of the issue, I think a lot of young people don't realise that racism is a major issue in the town, because we have quite a low ethnic diversity. But it's not just the original kind of traditional what you would class as racism these days. There's lots of different religions and people from different countries all move into the area, and it's important, that they're all equally accepted within the town. The role as Blackpool People's Council, I think, is to make sure that people from all these different sectors of the town, different communities within the town, have an equal right to have their voice heard as anyone else. To make sure that they have the right to the services and to education just as everyone else has, and also maybe perhaps in promoting to other young people just how important it is that we all work together in a common objective. We shouldn't be fighting each other, we should be working together for our futures.
Thank you. Chris Moore.
Okay, well, racism is a problem, and I think what we have to start with is education, as Dougie mentioned. That's where we have to really sort of teach people that it's not acceptable, and failing that, it's down to punishment. And as a society, we have to get it out to people that it's not appropriate, it's not accepted, and it will not be tolerated. And I think, this comes into sort of protected characteristics as a whole, which range from age discrimination, religion, race, sexuality, disability, or gender. And any sort of the protected characteristics which can be used for targeting people who are perceived as different is not tolerated and should not be tolerated by anyone, and should not be used as a means of targeting. So it does go beyond racism. I know a big problem at the moment in the country is attacking disabled people, and that seems to be the new thing at the moment, and it's just not appropriate. And if education doesn't work, then we have to make sure that we've got the right streams in place so that we can punish the individuals who are challenging and abusing these people purely because of their skin colour, their gender, their age, their sexuality. So, yeah.
Thanks. Probably a useful time again. One of our guests in the audience is Richard Debicki, who's Chief Constable for the area. So I'd like to hand over to Richard, please, on the topic.
Good evening, Les. I agree wholeheartedly with the comments of the panel so far. I don't need it, thank you. I mean, there is no place in society. There's no place in Blackpool for racism, or indeed any form of hate crime or discrimination. And I'm pleased to say over the years that due to raising awareness, I think that what you just said is far more in the psyche of people than it ever was. Well, notwithstanding that, we do know that these incidents and offences do go on. It's completely unacceptable and shouldn't be tolerated. So I do agree that education plays a part here. I do agree that parents and good parenting plays a key part. I do agree that peer pressure plays a role, and certainly us as public sector bodies, the police, schools, local authorities, play a key part as well in terms of our policies and things like good anti-bullying policies in schools. But where these incidents occur, at whatever level actually, whether these things spill over into violence or whether they're at a level where it just involves harsh words, harassment or behaviour, then we the police should and will take action, and people rightly will feel the full weight of the law if they perpetrate these kind of offences. So it's a really critical area, I think, for us all to get to grips with. I think it's an excellent question, actually.
Lauren Anderson.
Well, I think obviously this is quite a highly controversial topic at the minute with the whole England squad captaincy and everything, and I think what the most important way of tackling this is obviously punishment, and even when it's from teens to adults, everybody needs to be punished if they're going to do such crimes as this. I think people who are seen as different it's coming about that they aren't different. They're a person at the end of the day. They're still human and they're not different. They should be seen as the same, and everybody should be treated equally. And I think there needs to be knowledge of that what will happen to them if they're doing these sort of things, and they shouldn't cave into the peer pressure of maybe their friends or what everybody else is doing. They shouldn't listen and do what they think is right and treat everybody equally.
Thank you. Paul?
Yeah, I've a strange relationship with racism, because I've probably one of the strange situations of actually experiencing it firsthand when I lived in Zimbabwe as a white person in a black country. And obviously I don't know if people are familiar with Robert Mugabe and some of his policies and so on, but it really strikes out what racism really is. It's divisive, it's bullying, and it works to identify minorities, whatever their colour or disability or the difference that they have, in order to almost empower the person that is the bully. But on the same side, having lived in Africa, and I've also spent some time in a place called Mozambique. And Mozambique's had some terrible times. It's had a civil war and all the divisive things that could happen to a country. It's one of the poorest countries in the world. But due to its very strange colonial history, where the Portuguese would marry local people, it has a very high proportion of mixed race people. And because of that, the difference of going to somewhere like South Africa or Zimbabwe, where colour is very stark in terms of how you stand out and how people identify you as a person. In Mozambique, because of this mixed identity, where everybody was seen as the same, regardless of their colour or their wealth, it was one of the most liberating and free places I've ever experienced. And there, I think, lies the answer to racism. Is that, yes, you can legalise against it, and yes, you can say, well, we must do this, this and this, but it really must be based around people coming together and not being afraid to talk and share their differences and have different relationships, marriages and so on. And I think through that, over time, as has happened throughout Britain's history, when you look from the Normans and the way the English language has evolved, most of the words we have are French and so on. It's all been about absorbing these different cultures over the years. And I think if we can carry on that because the vast majority of people in this country deplore racism. And that's what gives me great heart, that we are working in this direction where people can come and live here and do very well. And that's something that we have to keep on continuing with and not be put off by a small minority that will want to spoil it for us all. And as I say, follow the Mozambique way, because by the mixed relationships, it destroys the difference. And that's what bullies and racism thrive on. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, we've come to the end of our first half hour, so we're going to take a break now of 15 minutes. So we'd be very pleased if everybody could be back at 8 o'clock when we start our second session, where we've got some equally good questions as we've had in the first session. So thank you very much.